Well, Sean, first of all, I'm delighted to see that we got matching tops today for that anyone would think we'd coordinated that.
Yeah.
But on the subject of coordination, I want to have a little conversation about being surprised with you.
Being surprised. I'm always surprised. Yeah,
indeed. But I'm surprised that the Americans are surprised about what's going on in Iran, insofar as some of the defense that the Iranians are putting up and some of their what they now call asymmetric warfare seems to be catching Mr. Trump and Mr. Hegseth out a little bit. I've got a couple.
Okay.
I'm sure you've got a couple of observations, but why don't you go first? Is there anything you're surprised about?
Well, I'm surprised about why the Americans are surprised about the Ukraine. I should say the Ukrainians there, the Iranians closing off the Straits of Hormuz.
Yes.
Because I don't know whether you recall, but we can run back. I mean, way back, 20 years ago, anybody who talked about the idea of attacking Iran, the gameplay was immediately that the Iranians would put a chokehold on the Straits of Hormuz, close it off, and we'd see a massive hike in the price of oil, which is exactly what's happened. But to listen to Trump and to listen to Hegseth, you come away believing that was a complete and utter surprise to them, and that nobody, such as the CIA or their intelligence services, had ever suggested that the Straits of Hormuz would be closed.
No, I heard a very nice little clip of this. In fact, you should be doing it in your Trump voice, but I'll try. He said, we've had the best experts, we've got all the experts in the world, we got the experts of experts. He says things three times.
Yeah.
And none of them told me that the Straits of Hormuz might be closed. So I'm thinking, okay.
I mean, you've only got to look at a map, haven't you, really, to work out?
Yes, it's a pinch point, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't really need experts upon experts upon experts to see that. I mean, one of the things, we'll come on to the surprise thing in a minute, as Cilla Black would have said. Surprise. Why did you like that? It was very good impersonation.
Very good.
Yeah. One of the things that surprises me on another level, and I'm not an expert on these things, but why don't they build oil pipelines from these countries that don't avoid the necessity for having to ship tankers through the Straits of Hormuz?
Well, funnily enough, that's what Netanyahu said a couple of weeks ago. He said that one of the outcomes from this, and it may well be, is a longer-term project to do exactly that.
Right.
But you can imagine the capital investment to do that would be enormous.
Yeah.
But it would obviously then be cheaper to do it. But the problem these days is that the pipelines become a risk. And we saw allegedly Ukraine cut some Russian
undersea cables, wasn't it? Yeah.
But it's a fair point. So why hasn't anyone done? Can I come in with a surprise?
You can come in with a surprise. Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised that Mr. Trump and Mr. Hegseth didn't engage Ukraine earlier in this conflict, or anyone, but let's start with
Iran.
Ukraine.
Even you mean? Do you mean Iran?
No, Ukraine.
Ukraine. Okay.
Because probably their most friendly experts on drone warfare would be the Ukrainians, right? And I'm not talking in the first instance for offensive strategies. I'm talking defensive, because one of the things I think the Americans have been surprised about is the effectiveness of the Shahed drones, which I believe Iran supplied to Russia from memory.
They did, and they have adapted them apparently to suit their own purposes, and they're producing their own now. But yes, you're quite right. They sold loads.
Now these have a payload of I think it's a 50-pound bomb, and they're obviously kamikaze drones, so they're only going to go one way.
Yeah,
and I know that they're not getting as many in the air as they did in the early days, but it's still a constant drumbeat of drones. And that seems to have caught the Americans out, that they're able to succeed in striking sites, and secondly, that they are striking sites outside of, say, Israel. And you wonder whether they actually war-gamed the fact that the Iranians would strike the friendly, particularly air bases, and the friendly oil supply of nations such as Dubai, Kuwait, and so on and so forth.
Well, there's two. Sorry, forgive me. There's two surprises there, isn't there? There's two. One is that they are attacking Gulf states. They seem to be
Yes.
surprised with that, but they also seem to be surprised that they're attacking them with drones as opposed to purely, I assume, ballistic missiles. But then if you're surprised that they're attacking them in the first place, you thought they'd just sit back and do nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry, I interrupted you in your flow.
No, but so that's something. And then I guess the other surprise, although we've seen this before, and the markets are beginning to spot this, is that so many of Mr. Trump's threats do not materialize and get extended. We saw this with tariffs. And I noticed this morning that his various, we're close to a deal, we're talking, they want to do a deal. Markets aren't buying that anymore. Share prices dipped this morning, and this morning being Thursday, the 2nd of April.
Yeah.
Share prices dipped, and the price of oil ticked up again to a record high. So the markets have sort of said, nah, we're not listening to this anymore. No. And I think Mr. Trump's quite surprised by that, because clearly he does this to manipulate markets. Well, allegedly does it to manipulate markets. And I should imagine to keep stocks high and the price of oil low for his domestic audience. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. But it does seem to be surprising the Americans left, right, and center.
Well, if you were sitting in the CIA at the moment, I would imagine you'd probably be tearing your hair out, wouldn't you? Because I can't believe that these intelligence services aren't passing on this information to the executive, to Trump and to Hegseth and the likes, to be able to make assessments on this basis. They're telling the public one thing, aren't they, where presumably they're receiving differing information in the background. You'd also question, wouldn't you? You're quite right in your, I'm surprised they're not talking to the Ukrainians. You would also be questioning why it is that they're not talking to the Ukrainians, because that would make perfect sense. But this all feeds into the conspiracy theorists' belief that there's something not quite on the level in terms of the relationship between the US and Ukraine and Zelensky. We know all about the way that Zelensky was hijacked when he went to that meeting in the Oval Office. I mean, that's quite clear. What is it? I mean, Zelensky's been flying around the Gulf states, offering each individual Gulf state help with protecting themselves against these drones. And for goodness sake, the CIA would have known. I mean, the Shahed drones, I mean, you knew this and I knew this, so the CIA would certainly have known it. Shahed drones produced in Iran and exported, sold to Russia, have been used heavily in the Ukrainian war. So why on God's earth are they not taking advice from the Ukrainians?
It's almost, well, maybe they have, but it's almost as if the Americans planned to fight a war from 20 years ago, in terms of naval superiority, air superiority, all of which they've probably got, but they've missed this new 2026 style of warfare, which is drones, which it's just bizarre when you actually think about what's going on. It's both bizarre and obvious that countries would choose to defend and attack in that way.
Yeah.
And they seem to have missed a trick. The other surprise, and I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up tomorrow, because what are America? They're just getting up now, aren't they, broadly, the Americans? And today is a public holiday over there. So I do wonder whether we'll see some deployment of the armed forces personnel.
You think he's going to put boots on the ground, do you?
Well, you've got 5,000, is it now? Mixture of paratroopers, various army brigades, amphibious forces. He's got a lot of manpower and people power there right now. And you wouldn't take the risk, would you, of transporting thousands of soldiers to a region and keeping them on the boats or wherever they are?
Well, we're doing another segment this week, aren't we, on last night's speech by Trump? So I think we can probably look at that in a bit more detail on that particular segment.
In that case, I'm not surprised you've cut me off.